Shalom, when it's off, souls by giving no praise to Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, B'Shem Kakadash, double honor to the apostles of great millstone, and honor to you brothers doing the work of the most on truth and sincerity. Yahweh is the real name of whom the world ignorantly calls God, Jehovah, Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh, and his son's true name is Yahweh Shai, and only pray Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahushua, but in having that and Shah meaning names Yahweh and the name of Yahweh Shai. Real quick, this is which got a quote that I heard. Not got any precepts, Lord's will. Something comes to mind, but it goes like, the tyranny Athens imposed on others, it finally imposed on itself, right? And you're basically gonna start seeing, and not gonna start seeing. What we are seeing is he is basically creating, this circumstance where, for people, they've seen America go out and drop bombs on this country and cause upheaval and tyranny in other countries. But what you're starting to see more and more is all of that is being redirected inwards, right? The thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is all part of bringing about the time of Jacob's trouble, right? So we can get Jeremiah 30, and I'll start from 6. It's asking now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Right? So all of these things are, in preparation for these, last days. Right? The fact that, they're if you will, sieging, America in the sense, and these Western nations in the sense of, what's happening right now in Iran. That's going to have a knock-on effect on food prices, right? But that's what they're doing right now in Cuba. They're not letting Cuba get certain goods, right? They're not letting Cuba get certain goods, so then and nor any oil. So basically, Cuba is sieged, right? Cuba's in a place where it's like they're going run out of fuel, run out of food, etc., 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 right? Because it ain't just with certain things, it ain't just about having the raw thing there. Like it will need to get processed, right? But what is happening over there, right, is also happening in these Western nations. One of the things that people speak about is just the cost of living, okay? And this Edomite has done that across the world, right? But he's doing it at home as well, right? Which there are a whole load of precepts just on famine, because famine is a big thing. In fact, this is so there's a precept at the top of my mind that I'm thinking of, but it's at the top of my mind. Is it this one? This is this one. Yeah, it is 2nd Ezra 16, 18 through 22, right? It says 2nd Ezra 16 and 18, right? The beginning of sorrows and great mourning, the beginning of famine and great death, right? The beginning of wars, and the power shall stand in fear. For the beginning of evils, what shall I do when these evils shall come? So once again, what you're seeing is all of this war happening throughout the world, right? But once again, it's like he is bringing that sword home, right? And we'll load up Ezekiel 21 for later as well, right? Yeah, you're seeing E basically bring that sword internally, right? He's causing all of these other, like, once again, strifes and issues, right? He wants this to happen, right? He's done the whole thing about divide and conquer, but what are you watching? You're watching him divide and conquer his own people, right? So such that they fight one another, so that he can come in amidst the chaos to bring the order, right? So verse 19 says, behold, famine and plague, tribulation and anguish are sent as scourges for amendment, right? And why is Esau doing it? Because ultimately it's the Most High's will. The Most High wills that this Edomite fights one another, right? So it goes on to say, But for all these things shall they not turn from their wickedness, nor be always mindful of the scourges. Behold, victual shall be so good cheap upon earth that they shall think themselves to be in good case, right? And then shall evils grow upon earth, sword, famine, and great confusion, right? Which things are going up, but in contrast to what it will become, right? It's still good, right? Because what does it say? It says, this is Revelation 6:6. It says, in fact, let me start from 5, right? It says, Revelation 6:5, and when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast saying, right, come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand, right? The black horse represents judgment, right? And all of the times that the children of Israel were taken to the Americas to serve slavery, right? It says, verse 6, it says, and I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, right? And see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. And that penny is representing, right, a day's wage, okay? So that's let's see, we're in 21 anyway, 2nd 16, 20, 21, right? So that's what you're going to see. You're going to be seeing hyperinflation, right, to the point where you can barely eat, right? You ain't worried about steak, you're just worried about bread, okay? And even then, I saw someone basically posted that one of the things they found very interesting about the Western world is that things aren't sold as singles in the same way that they are in like certain parts of the world. Now they were talking about one of the things that the way they were referencing Slovakia were cigarettes, right? Which of course we don't condone that. But like basically what the person was saying is like, yeah, in the third world it's normal to just buy one cigarette, right? Out of a pack. Whereas here in the West, you would buy the whole pack. They also use an example of like a bread, like you might buy a couple slices, as opposed to the whole loaf, right? As just as an example, right? But why? It's because those places know and are used to having to go with a little, whereas in the West, people in the West ain't used to having to go in the little, right? But once again, going back to the point of the rather the inspiration, right? A lot of these countries are poor because Esau has made them poor, right? He has put in place systems to keep those places under subjection so that he can go and exploit those places. All right, continuing on, right, in 2nd Ezra 16:22, it says, for many of them that dwell upon earth shall perish of famine, right? So basically what the Lord is saying here is like, that basically a lot of people go and die from famine, right? A hell of a lot of people will die from famine. And once again, he is creating these situations, right, that once again for the most part has been issues that have been over there, right? Those issues are now being brought home, right? They're now being brought home to the Western world, a world that really hasn't known pain, hasn't known suffering or anything of that nature, right? The Western world has been nice, if you will, soft, right? It says, and the other that escaped the hunger shall the sword destroy, and the dead shall be cast out as dung, and there shall be no man to comfort them, right? For the earth shall be wasted, and the cities shall be cast down. So, yeah, that's it, man. Right? It says, they're gonna be a hell of a lot of death in these last days. Why? Ultimately, because the Lord wills it, right? The Lord wills it. Everything that we're seeing in this world, ultimately, the Lord wants it, right? Let's grab this. This is Luke 12:49. It says, I am come to send fire on earth, and what will I if it be already kindled, right? What will I, Thello, right? It's basically to have in mind, intend, right? So the Lord intends that, Yahushua intends that when he comes back, right, that the fire already going to be burning, right? That the fire rises, right? Then you also got this in Isaiah, right? 66. I'll start from 15. It says, "For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh," right? Which that word there, plead, is shapat, which means judge, right? It says, "And the slain of the Lord, right, shall be many," right? Now this is talking about even, in the Lord comes with the chats, but in everything, the Lord wants slaughter, right? Because of great wickedness that has, basically amassed throughout the world, right? And the Lord is basically just using this Edomite to do it, okay? Because our people need to get judged, right? Our people be wicked as hell, right? This is Psalms 17 and 13. It says, "Arise, O Lord Yahweh, disappoint him, cast him down, right? Deliver my soul from the wicked, which is thy sword." That wicked, right, is the Edomite, man. Okay, so why he basically takes the word of the Lord and he chucks it behind him, as it says in Psalms 50. So it says in Malachi 1 and 4, the border of wickedness, because he goes all over the world, which is why ultimately these Edomites be getting banned, right? That's why, even today, right, you're having a lot of different heathens, different people starting to once again look down on the Amalekite, okay? But these Edomites are just the sword of the Lord, man. Okay, and the Lord is going to use them to punish our people, right? Because once again, our people be wicked, and this is a time of judgment, right? So we read these. Now let's jump over to let's get this right. It says Isaiah 19 and 2. "And I'll set the Egyptian against the Egyptians, and he shall fight everyone against his brother, and everyone against his neighbor, city against city, and kingdom against kingdom." Right. So that division, right, that fracturing, right. Once again, he's been doing this throughout the world, right? You think about different, E will call it sectarian violence. Who's creating those sects? Or rather, because, certain people, there were groups already, but who's arming one side so that they can go and try to fight the other side, so that, the power vacuum that then remains, he can go and exploit the area. Like, for instance, in the Congo, right, he'll be setting, groups up, and then that allows him to then exploit the natural resources in that land. But guess what? That tyranny that he imposed over Congo, right? That he's imposed over different, nations. Guess what? It's coming. It's coming to the U.S. Okay, it's coming to America. Right? Ain't no film about Jake trying to get in love, right? It's because I realize I've not actually brought out the definition, right? It says tyranny, right? Government by a ruler or a small group of people who have unlimited power, right, over the people in their country or state, and use it unfairly and cruelly. Now, you know what we've got to do, right? This is Isaiah 19 and 4. Right, so, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel lord, right? Which we believe that's that man Trump, man. He's just doing whatever the hell he wants, right? And the fierce king shall rule over them, saith the Lord Yahweh of hosts, right? So really, I should have brought that out at the beginning, right? But it came nonetheless, okay, right? And that's it, right? Tyranny. Right, it says a situation in which someone or something controls how you are able to live in an unfair way. And what does that sound like? That sounds like the mark of, the MOTB, right? The Lord is putting the spirit in this man, right, to basically try and put a mark in everyone, right, as we read in the book of Revelation, right? He's going to try, and he's going to succeed to a point, because ultimately it's the Most High's MOTB, as Apostle Tahar brings out. Okay, well, let me grab this. This is Ezekiel 21 and 9. "Son of man, prophesy and say, Thus saith Yahweh, say a sword is sharpened and also furbished. It is sharpened to make a sore slaughter. It is furbished that it may glitter. Right? And should we then make mirth? It contemneth the rod of my son as every tree." Now, when you look into this word furbished, right, it says marat, to bear, polish, make smooth or bold, right? And the thing that comes to mind is, like, you be hearing Jake speak, Jake will be like, yeah, man, I was just polishing the beat, or I was polishing off my, off my skills, or I was just basically meaning I was perfecting it, right? And the Lord has allowed this man to perfect wickedness, witchcraft, right? But the sword also, which he uses the sword, like, well, I was gonna say like an expert, but he is an expert. That says blessed. You can read that in Genesis, like 27, right? By thy sword shalt thou live. And oh, has he been living by that sword? Okay, but he's basically been polishing that sword, which is why you be seeing, a different theaters of war where you're seeing weaponry and you're thinking, damn, right? And this is one of the things I like to talk about, is just this idea of the conventional weapons, right, that Esau has. Because you've got the nuclear weapons, you've got the conventional weapons. And the conventional weapons, you'll be crazy, right? Let me just, pull up an example. What do you call it? I don't know. What it's called. So just having a look, because I don't. This isn't actually the one I want. Because I know it's a type of bunker buster. Um, I know it's a type of bomb, but it's just the way it works. It's crazy, right? Um, in that it basically has. I mean, damn! I mean, just look at that, man. That's crazy, man. Open image, new tab. Just put that there. Right, you see, able to cut through that. Like that's insane, right? But that's not really what I was looking for. What's it called? It's called double. I think it's called warhead. I think it is. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can't see what I'm thinking about. I forgot what it's called, right? But basically, the way it's designed is it's actually got two sets of warheads, right? And the first warhead is just to, like, you know, it's like the first warhead's like putting in the tip in it, but then you got the next one that basically then goes through and and does the damage, man, right? And this is the kind of weaponry, the conventional weaponry that this man has. Like, when you look at the cost of a Tomahawk missile, like, because I used to just hear, okay, it's 100, or so it's like 1 million for one missile, but then you actually read like how it works, right? It's distances that it can travel, right? That is the gift that's been given to this man. Okay. But let's finish this off, right? Back in Ezekiel 21 and 11 now, right? And he hath given it to be furbished, that it may be handled. The sword is sharpened, and it is furbished, to give it into the hand of the slayer, right? Which that slayer, right? That hand, right? That's this Edomite, man, right? And the Lord's going to use him, right? Because it's crying, how, Son of man, for it shall be upon my people, it shall be upon all the princes of Israel. Terrors by reason of the sword shall be upon my people. Smite therefore upon thy thigh. Okay, and that's it, man. So, like I said, I thought the quote. I really like the quote. If anyone else wants to build off that quote, please do. Right, because this is exactly what we're seeing. Right. So as always, Lord's will that was edifying. Until next time, we say shalom.